In this video, we're going to sew the collar. So we're going to show you how to put the collar together and sew it and do the understitching. So firstly, it's important to note that we are using a different fabric for our undercollar, and we think it looks really pretty. But if you were using the same fabric for the main and the undercollar, you would be able to differentiate which is the undercollar, as it's the one that's been interfaced. So this is the side we're going to work on when we are pinning and sewing. So you can lay your two pattern pieces, so your two fabric pieces like this. And we just have one notch that we're going to align. So we're going to place the two collars right sides together. And we are going to align this top notch here. So this is the side that gets sewn into the neckline. So we're not working on this at the moment. We're only working on this long edge here and the two shorter edges here. So with right sides together, we're going to align the top collar and the undercollar, matching the notch. On the interface side, we're going to pin along the top outer raw edge and the two shorter edges. So I'm going to first align the notches together, and I've placed a pin there to show where the notch is on the other side. So also, it's important to place your pins facing into the fabric like this, as it allows the fabric to have a bit of movement. When you place the pins across like that, it's preventing that area from having any give. So we like to put our pins facing into the fabric this way. Once you've aligned that notch, I'm going to come across to these raw edges, and I'm just going to place another pin there. And I'm going to come down to here. I'm going to align those corners. So that's how I always start to pin. So I've aligned that section there, and the notch. And now you can start to pin in between. If there's any give in the fabric, this will allow this area to have that movement, so you can pin in between those two pins. And then I'm going to just keep bringing those raw edges together. And just keep checking whether you need to ease your collar in a little bit there. So we'll go along and we'll continue to pin this side. But once you have pinned the whole collar, so you're just pinning these three edges, you're going to come and make a mark here. So this is your 1 centimeter pivot point. So when you take this to the sewing machine, I'll actually turn the collar this way around, and you'll start sewing here, and you'll sew up to that pivot point, and then you will turn. So we've marked it very accurately with a fabric marker. These fabric markers do come off when you press, so just make sure when you are pressing at any point, you're not pressing away any notches. So once we have pinned this side, we will take this to the sewing machine and show you how to sew it.
So for this video, we're now going to machine the collar. You'll see this little notch here, but that notch is not where you're starting machining. That's where we're going to be fitting the collar into the bib shirt. It's a 1 centimeter seam allowance. So you're going to come to your sewing machine, and on here we have the 10, which is our seam allowance for a 1 centimeter stitching line, and we're going to lower our needle in, and you're going to hold on to the little tails at the back, and we're going to go forwards and backwards as a locking stitch, and then hold on to those tails so you don't get that horrible bird's nest. And as we come up to each pin, we're going to, and that's why, where Lisa said in the last video, it's important to have the pins that way. Which way is that, Lisa, again? What do you call that?
Like vertically in rather than horizontally.
Okay. So as we come up to our pivot notch there, we're going to lower the needle into that pivot point and then turn and then come down the outer side of the collar as we come up to each pin. So you can see here, this is quite movable fabric, which is the top collar. So I'm just tweaking it a little bit as I'm machining there, just tweaking that. So we're going to run to the middle of the collar, but you would carry on all the way around to the other side. So we now have a machined collar, and the next step is the understitching technique. So we don't press this because you have a much nicer finished of the stitching without pressing. Because of the nature of the collar, you can't get right to the end. So we're going to start stitching about 5 centimeters in, and you can pop a little pin. I haven't measured it, but that's approximately, you can see as I turn this over, you can see that the seam is going to be going towards the interface, the under collar side there. You can see it's going that way, and we're stitching on the floral side, which is your under collar, and it's going to be stitched kind of here. So we're going to start at this end of the collar and finish about 5 centimeters away from the other end.
And the purpose of the understitching, you say, Amanda.
Yeah, is to hold back the collar, so it naturally, as this then, after we press it, this naturally turns the under collar under the collar, and you have a much lovelier collar.
It almost gives the under collar weight,
yeah,
so that it sits underneath much neater.
Absolutely. So we're now ready to do our understitching, and so we have that pin ready to that's where we're placing our foot, and the needle is going to run. Can you see it's kind of, I don't know how, it's very minimal, it's just there, you can see there.
I'd say it's about 5 millimeters from the edge.
Okay.
So you're spreading the two fabrics apart, so you're working on the right side.
Yeah. So we're going to take this pin out now, and you will be doing what I call a locking stitch, which is a backwards and forwards stitch and you have to do that so our stitching doesn't come undone. So I'm now going to take that. Now, if you wanted to, you could put lots of pins running down the collar if you felt that was better, but you can see there that you're making sure that the seam is going towards the interface collar. But I'm holding can you see with my fingers, I'm pulling that seam apart because there's no pressing involved. You're literally having to work as you go down. So you can see there, my fingers are holding. So, and again, I'm just making sure that seam is definitely going towards the undercollar. I'm also holding now the fabric at the back because you're keeping it taut.
And again, it's important to only sew a small section at a time. You'll be a lot more accurate, and you're sort of prepping your next section before you sew it.
Yeah, definitely. Everything is about slowing down in sewing, and we're not in a hurry. You're trying to make the loveliest collar. And so can you see how my fingers, I'm holding at the back, but I'm also spacing my fingers on my left hand to hold that seam there. So as we're coming to the middle now of the collar, so that's kind of a little bit easier because it's a straight edge. but I am really holding the, not pulling, I'm not pulling the collar, I'm just keeping it taut. And again, can you see I'm working so again, I'm realigning and adjusting the collar all the time, thinking ahead slightly of each step. And so here, so you've got to make sure that because there's there's curving going on, that you're making sure this finger is very important. It's kind of holding it. But like I said, if you wanted to put pins in there, you're more than welcome to put pins in if that's easier for you. So as we come up to, it's approximately 5 centimeters, but I'm going to try, you can see it's more awkward now at this area because it's the other end of the collar, but I'm going to stop around about there and do a locking stitch there. So I'll just pull the collar out so you can see what we've done, and there. So it naturally folds back. You can see how beautiful that is because that's the under collar. So we now are going to turn the corners. So there's 2 ways that you can do this. So you can use some tweezers, or if you prefer to use your wooden, they have the shaped wooden tools. So you're going to clamp the tweezers and then you're just going to push that through like this, and you just get a nice sharp corner there. Another way that you can do it is, so if I push this through like this, and I'm going to just hold my thumb up into the corner and I've got my finger holding, you can turn, so you're turning it over on that machined seam, and then you're folding that over, and then you're pushing through with your finger, and you kind of get a turned edge there. So it's either one, which you prefer, doesn't really matter. We say not to cut the corners because also you want to make sure that you're happy with your collar before you go cutting the seams, because you might not be happy with one corner and you might need to adjust that. So we're leaving that option up to you, but we tend to not cut the corners. Okay, so now we're going to press the lovely understitch seam, but you have to do it from this side because we don't want to press out our lovely notches. So I'm happy with my corners, and now we're going to press here. So this is where the understitching is just perfect, because you know that you're not going to put a pressed seam in the wrong there. So can you see how lovely that is if I turn that over, and it's just perfectly sitting underneath, and you're just going to press that all the way along the collar. And the corner here, so you're kind of rolling, because this hasn't got any understitching, you have to kind of roll this. What I do is kind of a rolling sensation there, but I'm still keeping, you can see the underside part fabric there. So when that turns, can you see that on the camera? And then when I turn that over, it looks lovely. So we pushed through our corners on the last video and we pressed round, and the next step is that you're getting the 2 edges, the inner edges of the collar, the top collar and the under collar together, and you're running a basting stitch, which you do need to put your pins to hold it, and you're running a basting stitch all the way around, about 5 millimeters from the edge, and then you're remarking on the under collar side where your notches are.
then you can fold your collar, fold your pieces over just to check that you're happy that both of these are the same.
Yep.